Let's talk about winter. Sometimes it's mild, with soft snowflakes drifting down and families enjoying the crisp air outside. On those days, winter feels magical, almost gentle, inviting us to play, explore, and marvel at the beauty of the season. But other times, it's absolutely brutal. The wind howls, snow piles up in drifts, and the cold bites through even the thickest coats. Streets become nearly impassable, and everyone hurries to find warmth and shelter. The winter of 2024 was one of those wild ones, with freezing air and record snow that blanketed entire cities. Cars disappeared under mounds of white, and daily routines were upended by the relentless weather. Why was it so cold? The answer isn't just because it's winter. There's a fascinating science behind these extreme chills. The real culprit is the polar vortex, a massive swirling system of cold air that usually stays locked over the Arctic, far from most of us. But sometimes this icy giant wobbles and sends blasts of frigid air south, reaching places that aren't used to such intense cold. That's exactly what happened in 2024, turning what could have been an ordinary winter into a deep freeze that tested everyone's endurance. Understanding the polar vortex helps explain why some winters are mild and others are extreme. It's not just luck or chance, it's the result of powerful forces at work, high above us. Our weather isn't random, it's part of a giant interconnected system that shapes everything from gentle flurries to record-breaking storms. So, let's dive in and uncover the science behind these wild winter swings. There's so much more happening than meets the eye. By the end, you'll know why you were shivering, and gain a new appreciation for the science of winter. You'll see how every snowflake and cold gust is part of a bigger story. Science is everywhere, even in a snowstorm. Next time you step outside into the cold, remember, you're experiencing the wonders of our planet in action. So, what exactly is the polar vortex and why does it matter so much for our winters? Picture a massive, invisible spinning top made of icy, frigid air, swirling high above the North Pole. This isn't just a small patch of cold, it's a gigantic system, stretching thousands of kilometers across, and it's always present, even if we can't see it from the ground. The polar vortex becomes especially powerful in winter, when the Arctic is plunged into months of darkness, and the sun barely rises, if at all. With no sunlight to warm the region, the air gets even colder and denser. This super chilled air forms a swirling vortex, a kind of atmospheric whirlpool, held together by fierce high-speed winds known as the polar night jet stream. These winds whip around the pole, acting like a barrier. Imagine the jet stream as a powerful, invisible fence, racing around the Arctic and keeping the coldest air locked up tight at the top of the world. As long as this fence holds strong, the icy air stays put, and most of us experience typical winter weather. When the polar vortex is stable, our winters might be chilly, but they're nothing out of the ordinary. The cold stays where it belongs, far to the north. It's important to know that the polar vortex isn't a storm you'll see on your weather app or out your window. It lives way up in the stratosphere, much higher than where our daily weather happens. But sometimes this swirling system gets disturbed by sudden warming events or shifts in the jet stream. When that happens, the vortex can wobble or even split apart, sending blasts of Arctic air southward. The polar vortex is a permanent feature of Earth's climate system. It's not a new phenomenon or something to be afraid of, but it does have a big impact on our weather. Meteorologists and climate scientists have been studying the polar vortex for decades. Thanks to satellites and advanced weather models, we now understand how changes in the vortex can trigger extreme cold snaps, snowstorms, and even unusual weather patterns far from the Arctic. Whether we get a mild, manageable winter or a bone-chilling, record-breaking freeze, often depends on how stable the polar vortex is from week to week. So, the next time you hear the term polar vortex on the news, remember, it's not just a buzzword, it's the powerful boss of winter's cold, shaping the season for millions of people. When the vortex is strong and steady, we're protected from the harshest Arctic blasts, and winter feels more manageable. But when it weakens or breaks apart, get ready, because that's when the deep freeze can sweep down, bringing wild, unpredictable winter weather. That's the science behind our wildest winters, and why the polar vortex is a force we can't ignore. The polar vortex is usually kept in check by the jet stream, but what happens when that fence breaks? Imagine the jet stream as a rubber band holding marbles. If it gets loose, marbles escape. When the jet stream weakens, it becomes wavy, letting chunks of Arctic air spill south. That's when we feel a polar vortex event, a blast of frigid air plunging into the US and Canada. Cities like Chicago or even Dallas can suddenly feel like Siberia. The boundary between Arctic and milder air becomes stormy, fueling blizzards and ice. So, a wandering vortex doesn't just bring cold, it powers some of our wildest winter storms. That's how the vortex turns down the thermostat and cranks up the storm machine. The polar vortex's strength is one of the most important factors in deciding what kind of winter we get each year. This swirling mass of cold, dense air sits high above the Arctic, acting almost like a giant weather engine for the northern hemisphere. When the vortex is strong and stable, the jet stream forms a tight barrier, keeping frigid Arctic air locked up far to the north. As a result, most of the United States experiences a milder, calmer winter, with fewer extreme cold snaps and less disruptive weather. Weather systems tend to move smoothly from west to east. Storms are less intense, and the deep Arctic chill rarely escapes its icy home. The snow and ice stay mostly in the far north, sparing much of the country from harsh conditions. But when the polar vortex weakens or becomes unstable, everything changes. The jet stream starts to wobble and dip, creating pathways for Arctic air to surge southward into the US, sometimes reaching as far as Texas or the deep south. That's when we see record-breaking cold, powerful snowstorms and dangerous wind chills that can make even a short walk outside feel unbearable. Cities unaccustomed to severe winter weather can suddenly find themselves in the grip of a deep freeze. The Midwest can freeze for days on end, and the East Coast can get slammed by bomb cyclones, intense storms that bring heavy snow, fierce winds, and widespread disruption. So, if you're ever wondering why one winter feels mild and the next is absolutely brutal, the answer often lies with the polar vortex and its unpredictable behavior. Its mood swings shape everything from unexpected snow days for kids to dangerous deep freezes that can disrupt travel, close schools, and even threaten power supplies. The same system can make one year seem easy and the next unforgettable, transforming familiar streets into winter wonderlands or icy battlegrounds overnight. That's the true power of the polar vortex, a force of nature that can reshape our entire winter experience in just a matter of days. It's winter's ultimate wild card, always keeping us guessing and reminding us just how dynamic and unpredictable our planet's weather can be. The winter of 2024 was a textbook polar vortex event. Early winter was mild, but in January, the vortex was disrupted and split apart. The jet stream weakened, letting Arctic air plunge deep into North America. States from Montana to Texas saw temperatures drop to record lows. Cities like Chicago and Minneapolis stayed below zero for days. The cold was relentless, breaking decades-old records. But it wasn't just cold. Massive snowstorms hit as Arctic air collided with warmer, humid air. Travel halted, schools closed, and millions faced dangerous conditions. The scale and intensity were historic, showing how powerful a wandering vortex can be. Meteorologists saw it coming, thanks to advances in polar vortex science. It was a winter we won't soon forget. Why does the polar vortex suddenly wander? The answer: sudden stratospheric warming. Sometimes powerful atmospheric waves from below surge upward, rapidly heating the stratosphere by up to 50 degrees C. This weakens or splits the vortex, letting cold air escape south. There's often a delay, about a week or two, before we feel the effects on the ground. Scientists are studying how climate change might make these disruptions more common, as a warming Arctic could weaken the jet stream. Understanding these triggers helps us predict and prepare for extreme winters. When the polar vortex visits, it impacts nearly every part of life. Power grids strain as everyone cranks up the heat. risking blackouts. Water pipes freeze and burst, causing flooding and outages. Roads and airports shut down, stranding travelers and halting business. The economic cost is huge, from lost revenue to emergency repairs. The cold is dangerous. Frostbite and hypothermia can set in within minutes. Vulnerable groups like the elderly and outdoor workers are most at risk. Emergency services are stretched thin, responding to weather-related crises. Even a snow day can turn stressful when it drags on. The polar vortex doesn't just change the weather, it changes how we live, work, and connect. Checking on neighbors and staying safe becomes everyone's job. It's a reminder of how powerful and disruptive nature can be. When extreme cold is coming, preparation is key. Stay indoors if you can. Don't risk it unless absolutely necessary. If you must go out, dress in layers, base, insulation, and a windproof shell. Cover every bit of skin, and don't forget hats, gloves, and boots. Prepare your home, check your heating, seal leaks, and let faucets drip to prevent frozen pipes. Have an emergency kit with blankets, flashlights, food, and water in case the power goes out. Check on neighbors, especially the elderly or those living alone. Bring pets inside. If it's too cold for you, it's too cold for them. Staying home keeps roads clear for emergency crews. Preparation and community are our best defenses against the cold. Respect the weather, and you'll stay safe. A little planning goes a long way during a polar vortex. Together, we can weather even the wildest winter. The polar vortex isn't a monster. It's a fascinating part of our planet's weather. When it weakens, Arctic air escapes, bringing wild cold and storms, like in 2024. Understanding the science helps us predict and prepare for these events. It connects us to the vast, swirling atmosphere above. Every frigid day is a reminder of nature's power and our ability to adapt. Science turns fear into curiosity and respect. So next time you hear polar vortex, you'll know what's coming and how to stay safe. Stay curious, stay prepared, and stay warm.